Hello. I am much later than normal. I've spent the last hour trying to get rid of things because I have no storage on any of my electronics right now. And moving things around, trying to get some storage back. It's been a lot of work. And then having to download things onto other electronics just takes forever. Nothing is quick. We'll have to work on it more after stream. What else? I started my new job. It's going alright. But I'll be able to stream longer now. Oh, if you hear coughing in the background, my roommate I think is slightly sick, so you might hear that every so often. Otherwise, I don't think there's any other updates. I also don't know what we're doing today. I know we finished. I don't know who we're working on. I'm hoping we're almost done. Is this working? Yes. Okay, cool. But yeah, I don't know who we're working on. So I guess we'll just jump in and see. Continue. Oh yeah, we had Carlos and Ching to do. Okay. Oh. The wind was getting stronger when I left the detention center. Everyone on the street was walking very fast, probably anxious to get home. I held on tightly to a piece of paper in my hand so that it wouldn't be blown away. Earlier I had written down a short note in a hurry. Blue lady, Jigel. That was the message Officer Jingyeon had left me. I hadn't expected that she would be the one that had been detained in place of Lieutenant Kang. Maybe transformation was not as complicated as I thought. And then again, where was Lieutenant Kang? I was hoping to see him. That plan hadn't worked either. And now this note was the only lead I had. I had to go to Blue Lady and find this person named Jigel. Blue Lady was an infamous gay bar in Busan. For police and gangs in particular, it was infamous because it was an establishment that belonged to the Bung gang. I sat down at the bar and ordered a glass of orange juice. I checked my surroundings. Quite a few people seemed to be giving me strange looks, and they were whispering something under their breath. I didn't quite fit in at a place like this. However, I had real business to worry about. Speaking of business, who was this Jagal? Was he a frequent customer or the owner of the place? I waved the bartender over, hoping to ask him about this name, but before I opened my mouth, I suddenly felt a heavy blow to my head and my face was smashed into the bar. After who knows how long, I heard some slapping noises and I felt pain in my face. I finally opened my eyes. Judging from the lights outside the window, I must be on the second floor of the bar. I could see office desks, couches, filing chairs, tables, and pool tables. In the room, there was even a coconut tree. I tried to sit up, but realized my left hand had been cuffed to a desk leg. Some young men surrounded me at the wall. They all looked like they were in a gang. One of them had a head full of curly hair and he was crouching next to me. He kept slapping me in the face with what felt like a card. I struggled to move my face away before I saw that he was holding my police ID. Who knew that a police officer would be hanging out here? If you don't tell us what you're really here for, we're going to think you're here looking for some fun. His buddies all laughed. This didn't look good, but I didn't want to cause too much trouble. I just needed to get out of this as soon as possible. The curly-haired man kicked me in the stomach. Talk. Do you think that we, the Bung Mung gang, are an easier target than the Musang gang? If you want, we guarantee we'll make you feel something. Dude, that's the wrong word. It should be excruciating. A man nearby with split bangs tried to correct the curly-haired guy, who immediately slapped him in the head instead. The door opened. All the men were laughing hysterically. Took one glance at the door, immediately stood up straight, shouting, "Good evening, sir." A very tall man had just walked into the room. He was wearing a pink flowery shirt and a pair of leafy green beach shorts. That is a look. And looked incredibly tropical. He quickly noticed what was going on. "What you guys have here? A cop sneaking around the bar." We were just about to question him. The curly-haired guy even formally handed him my police ID. The other guys picked me back up and slammed me face down onto the desk. The man called sir, then caressed my back with one hand. Very fit, lots of potential. Potential? What potential? Was he talking about joining their business? What kind of sick joke was that? I was someone who had dreamt of defending justice and becoming a real hero, but to keep myself from getting into trouble, I had to keep it under control. However, even though I could control my anger, I couldn't fully control my body. If he didn't stop soon, I was going to let out a loud fart. I remembered seeing a diagram of a human brain way back when. They would write lots of words on the brain representing what the person was thinking at the time. If someone were to draw a diagram of my brain right now, it would be filled with the word fart. Even worse, it might be running out of space. After giving me another pinch on my butt, the man finally stopped molesting me. "Oh, I didn't know you were here looking for me." I turned around and saw he was holding the note I had put in my pocket. I finally understood. The sir in front of me was Jagal, the boss of this bar, but I never would have imagined he would be a bona fide gangster and the leader of the Sinmu group within the Bungmung gang. Why would Officer Jiyeon ask me to come and find him? You are King's man? What do you want from me? I caught the ID he had thrown back at me. The ID only said I was in Unit 4 of the Busan Police Precinct, so I must have known about Lieutenant Kang. I still couldn't figure out what their relationship was, friends or foes, or maybe he was Lieutenant Kang's informant. In any case, since Officer Ji-yoon had asked me to find him, he must be someone who could help. I forgot to turn music on again. There you go. Now you can hear the classy background music. I briefly explained the reason of my visit. I mentioned that Officer Ming-yoon had been murdered. Although I withheld most of the details about Lieutenant Kang's situation, I was thinking that I should at least feel him out first. He just chuckled and lit a cigarette. Kid, are you trying to hold back something? You're 10 years too young to play this game with me. Let me put it this way. I'm an information broker. If you want information from me, you need to trade something. It's that simple, understood? He blew smoke in my face, smiling, and held my left hand steady. I took out the tail that I hid in my right palm and reached for the pocket on my shirt. I bit my lip and said, "Fine, how about this?" I handed him my weapon and pulled out a small notebook from my pocket. It had all of the trivial information I collected during all my cases since joining the force. Most of the information was about the Musan gang, although there were some about the Bungmung gang too. There was nothing particularly important or classified, otherwise I wouldn't be carrying it on me like this. Since he had mentioned trade, he must mean with something like this then. I suppose I wouldn't be able to buy it with money. He took my notebook, flipped through it quickly, and tossed it into the trash can. Then he made a gesture, and the man who had been watching us in the room the whole time immediately surrounded me. And then they started to miraculously beat me up. Jagel stood outside the circle and gently said, "Young man, you are not cut out to be a policeman. You are definitely not cut out to be Baekhyun's men. If you ever dare to show your face on my turf again, you will be dead." After those words, they tossed me out of the second floor window. I fell into the garbage container in the back alley. It hurt so bad that I couldn't move for a while. The night was freezing cold. I was so stupid to make such a careless move. What exactly did he want, though? Ooh. Okay, so I should be able to get an achievement if I do the left pocket. A beam of silver light flashed in the air, and the cigarette in Jagel's mouth was cut in half. My tail had also left a bloody scratch on his face. The people in the gang were all evil. I had to teach them a lesson. The man who had been watching by the walls immediately had me surrounded with all kinds of weapons in their hands. I had planned for the worst possible case. If necessary, I would knock every single one of them out. Jigel waved his hand and stopped his men. Hello, how are you? Becca had mentioned you to me several times. You are exactly like what he said. What a shame. Brave but stupid. Tell you what, I'll take care of this case. As for you, you should consider staying here and helping us out. I could use someone like you. I felt a sudden spell of dizziness. The smoke he had blown at me earlier was hypnotic. When I woke up, I found myself locked in a small room. Someone brought me meals every day. I recognized his face. I realized I was probably still in custody of the Mung Mung gang, although I couldn't figure out what their purpose was. Meanwhile, I was really worried about Lieutenant King and how the investigation of Officer Mingyun's murder had been going. 2 weeks later, they finally let me out. Jigel told me in person that Lieutenant King had fled to another country and he was fine. He even set up a video chat with Lieutenant King showing me he was indeed safe. In the end, I wasn't able to help Lieutenant King at all. Neither could anyone on the police force. It was someone in the gang who had saved him. My sense of justice had taken a shock. I became depressed for quite some time. After Lieutenant King left, Officer Jing Eon and I transferred to Unit 1. Those days without Lieutenant King were not only boring, but they also had nothing to do with justice whatsoever. I eventually came to terms with what had happened. Maybe it was out of my curiosity about Jigel or my gratitude for his help with Lieutenant King, but I decided to resign from the police and went back to the Blue Lady once again. I became a bartender. Every day I heard all kinds of interesting stories. I would help deal with some of the guests who were causing trouble. One day, some customers told me that something major had happened in the Busan police precinct. However, I didn't really care about that place anymore. As long as I have justice in my heart, I can still be a hero. There we go. Got the achievement. It's only 3 endings, so we're gonna not get the other endings, apparently. God. You would think this guide would be so much better than it is. I shouldn't need 2 different guides just to play this game. Okay. Okay. Left hand. don't know why the other bad ending's not working, so we'll just get the good ending. Yeah, I have noticed it's been doing that today, like really badly. It was doing that last week too. I'll also have to figure out what that issue is. A beam of silver light flashed in the air. My left middle finger flew off from my hand. Blood was dripping out of the wound and left some red dots on the floor. I covered my entire left hand with my right one and dropped to the ground, rolling in pain. It's yours. And I fainted. Call a doctor. No, you idiot. Not Dr. Chang. Dr. Wang. The one who lived at... I heard Jagel yelling at his man, and I opened my eyes just a little bit to take a peek at what was happening. He threw away the cigarette in his hand and carried me to a couch. His men were in complete disarray after being shouted at by their boss. I had made the right call. If this man was a true friend of Lieutenant Kang, then he must value loyalty and bravery. If all he had cared about was profit and benefit, then even if he had seen through my performance, I would at most get a beating. Then I could still give him what he had wanted to trade for the information. Nevertheless, this was the best result I could hope for. I finally busted out laughing and sat up on the couch with a hand holding my stomach. Then I stood up as Jagel looked on stunned and picked up the severed finger from the ground with my perfectly intact left hand smiling at him. I brought the fake finger at a small shop on my way here. Not only did they have fake fingers, they also had fake ears, eyes, and everything. The owner had said to me that if I wanted to survive in the gang, they were all necessities, and if I had hidden them all on me. It turned out they were indeed quite valuable. Jagel fell onto the couch, laughing hysterically. Well, I guess Bekia had pegged you wrong completely. He told me you were just a serious and boring fool. He told his men to make us some tea and then began to tell me everything he knew about this case. 2 hours later, I drank the last cup of tea and left Blue Lady. If there's any issues with the stream, I think you just have to restart. Oh, wait. I didn't know if it was on my side. There's so many things connected to the internet right this second, so. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's on my side, so. I started walking towards Officer Ming Yoon's house in the cold, biting wind. I guess we'll just keep doing Chang's story, see if we can finish it. It looks like there's 4 more letters, yeah. Officer Ming Yoon's house was very clean. On top of that, the Superior Investigation Agency in Unit 3 had been combing through this place for quite a few days, so it was very clean too. There was no other visitors anymore. Police tape was stretched across the door. The calendar in the living room was still on Wednesday's page. It was the day of his murder. It had already been 3 days since that. It's only been 3 days? Wow, you've done a lot. I remembered that Ming Yoon once mentioned that he didn't like those calendars that had... Why is Sunday split up weirdly like that? As the first day of the week, he said he had always preferred Monday as the start of the week. To him, it represented a new beginning for our work. Although, as police officers, we never really did enjoy the bowls and dishes in the cabinets were all spotless and meticulously stacked. There weren't many clothes in the closet. I remembered every single one. A whole bunch of old DVD discs were stacked on the TV stand. All of them were military documentaries about wars and weapons. I walked through the whole apartment several times, but I couldn't find anything related to his personal connections. I laid down on the couch and stared at the ceiling that wasn't too high up, feeling that I had run into a dead end. According to WIL, Lieutenant Kang was definitely innocent because they were drinking together at the time of Ming Yoon's death. However, drinking with a gangster was not going to be a very convincing alibi for him. Besides, it might cause other unnecessary problems. At this point, the only way to prove Lieutenant Kang's innocence was to find the real murderer. I had also gotten some information from Officer Ming Yoon himself from WIL. Officer Ming Yoon used to have a criminal record because he had been involved in a murder. For some reason, the case had been dropped, and there probably wasn't any records of it either. At the very least, there had been nothing about this in the electronic records in the police station archives. Of course, not many people knew about this at all. Moreover, Officer Ming Yoon was not just a casual military and weapons aficionado. He had previously purchased lots of regulated and even banned weapons through multiple shady channels. His arsenal could probably... However, WIL had said that he wasn't sure if his special hobby was related to his death. The information that did have a direct connection to the case was in regards to surveillance tapes. All of the surveillance videos from near the apartment building on the day of the murder were gone. Therefore, it was very likely that Officer Mignon had been killed in his own home. Unfortunately, there hadn't been any witnesses who might have seen if he had any visitors that day. Overall, although I had gathered a lot of potential valuable information, I still had no clue if it was the true identity. I still had no clue as to the true identity of the killer. Jan and I was getting sleepier the more I thought about it. Just as I was falling asleep, I felt something on my butt. I put my hand into the back pocket of my pants and took out Officer Mignon's keys. There was a keychain fob that was in the shape of a telephone. I remembered the fob really well. There was not many keys on the chain, but the fob, however, seemed way too big and inconvenient. I remembered that I had once been pouring some water for Officer Mignon while he was reading a new edition of a firearms encyclopedia. I was peeking at the book over his shoulder when I accidentally spilled the water all over his desk. Officer Mignon immediately pulled out some napkins and started wiping his keys and the fob while cursing at me. "You did not wipe the book first." Could it be? I went into the kitchen and found some flour and speckled it on the fob. I shook it and then blew on it. It worked. 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. These were probably the most frequently used digits. I tried pushing them. The buttons on the fob could indeed be pressed. You've never pressed the buttons before this? It looked like this could be a password to something. However, I didn't know what the password was for or what the password could be. Speaking of code, I could vaguely recall that Officer Mignon had once told me about a series of mystic numbers which might have something to do with this. But I remembered that those mystic numbers only had 6 digits, but there were 7 potential digits here. Could it be that the password had changed often? I seem to recall that there were some relative formulas. Officer Mignon had written those down for me while trying to explain how mystical the numbers were. Okay. Regardless, I should give it a try. Let me think. The code was probably 1, 2, 8, 5, 7, 4. Nothing happened. No, I couldn't just try a random combination. There were too many possibilities. 6 digits. Why would there be one too many being pressed on the fob? I was certain that Officer Mignon had written the numbers down on the corner of the piece of paper I had written my report on. Maybe I had written something else on it later. It was so long ago, I must have thrown it away. This is so frustrating. What on earth is the passcode? Okay, so the bad ending is randomly choose numbers. We'll do that. The actual answer is I don't know how you would have gotten that correct. I guess, you could try it, but it sounds like a pain. Beep. I heard an electronic beeping. Before I could figure out where the beeping was coming from, the body mirror in the middle of the living room wall suddenly rotated itself. It revealed a long and narrow tunnel behind it. I climbed into the tunnel and took a sharp. hidden between two walls barely wider than the tunnel itself. I entered the narrow space and was surrounded by stainless steel walls. It was lit by several daylight bulbs, which somehow gave the room a feeling of holiness. There were all kinds of hooks and shells attached to the steel walls, while numerous firearms and grenades were placed upon them. There were a dozen AWMs, even RPGs. It was indeed an arsenal. Now I understand why Officer Ming-Yun would always tell me that he would lend me a grenade. He hadn't been joking. Since I was the one in possession of the fob, I assumed that no one in Unit 3 had found this place yet. Maybe there might be some clues in here. Most of the guns were covered in a little bit of dust, but the floor, on the other hand, seemed unusually clean. I kept walking back and forth in the room. I sat down, crouched down, lay down, which is when I finally saw it. Next to the wall opposite of the door, there was a small wooden table on which there were all kinds of firearm cleaning and maintenance tools. One of the table legs next to the wall seemed to have a slightly darker tip than the others. It looked like it had been covered in something dirty. I turned on the flashlight and poked at the table leg. It wasn't just dirty, it was blood. I could see two small seams in the table leg where the bloodstain was. I reached out with my hand and touched the seam. The middle part between the seams suddenly sprung open. It was a secret slot, with something inside of it. I took the item out of the slot. It was a recorder, and it was still recording. I pressed the stop button first and then pressed play. The voices came out of the speakers. One was the familiar voice of Officer Ming-Yun. "When are you going to stop bothering me? You think you could just hide from me, but by not coming to the station?" It was another familiar voice. My eyes opened wider. I stared at the recording in my hand and couldn't believe my ears. Although it wasn't as loud as it had usually been, there was no way I would have mistaken that voice. The second voice belonged to the lieutenant of Unit 3, Kim. Not a shock that it was Kim. "I had done enough for you. Everything is over now. I'll resign and go back to my hometown next week. You want to go home?" "Ha, don't be ridiculous. Did you forget about your dirty little secret? Illegal possessions of weapons is one thing, but you didn't need me to tell you how many years you'll be spending in jail for manslaughter, do you? C0795, are you going to blackmail me with that my entire life? You think I'm going to just let you do that? I have done so much dirty work for you, and you think I never kept my own evidence? Are you talking about this? How did you get that? How did you know where I hid them? Did you really think I wouldn't know about your little tricks? I have my men tailing you 24/7. After all, you're just a pawn in my hands, and I couldn't just let you wander around as you wished now, could I? You want to threaten me with just some tapes? You are so naive. Even without those tapes, I still have other ways. You have conspired with Zhou Mingyu and told me to murder Choi son during a mission just to instigate a war between Choi and Lieutenant Kang so that you and Joe could benefit from their losses. If I leaked this information to the the Musang gang, I can guarantee that those people who are against Joe would want to take you out, and they don't need too much sound evidence. Oh, and speaking of Lieutenant Kang, if he ever learned about what you had done, he would never let you get away. I don't care if I'd be sent to prison or not anymore. I want my conscience back, and I swear I'll take you down with me. Well, that's really unfortunate. You weren't like this a few years ago when I first sent you into Unit 4. Back then, you were just a coward who didn't even dare to look me in the eyes when you were talking to me. I guess you've grown these past few years with Kang. What a shame. I will really miss you, kid, since I'll never see you again. As long as I let you go home, I swear I'll never tell anything to anyone else. I will have nothing to do with any of this anymore. I do believe that you won't tell anyone. I'm very confident about that, because dead men tell no tales. And then I heard the sound of silenced gunfire and the sound of a body falling down and a weak and brief groan. Neither voice said anything else. All I could hear was the sound of a door being opened and closed, as well as something being dragged through the floor. Those must be the sounds of Kim cleaning up the crime scene and taking Officer McNeeman's body away. After that, the recording kept going for a long time, but there were no more sounds at all. Officer McNeeman must have started the recording via remote control, but he was never able to stop it. I pressed the stop button again and stared at the dark red mark on the table leg. I could almost see how he struggled to paint the table leg with his own blood in the final moments of his life, while avoiding being seen by Kim. I opened my clenched fist and I gave him a salute. Okay, well, I guess we'll work on Carlos next. What is this one? Okay. Whoa. Well. Days spent in prison could be boring. At noon, while the sun was right in the middle of the sky, Jing and Quang got into an argument with each other in the yard yet again. In a couple of minutes, they would start a brawl, and everyone else in the yard, inmates and guards alike, would become spectators. It had turned into a daily routine. I sat under a tree far away from the ruckus. I wore my hat low and put my hands in my pockets, hoping to hide my nervousness from the guards and other curious inmates. I had been in prison for almost half a month. At first, I thought that I might have been arrested for wandering the streets in women's clothing. It was a strange reason to be arrested in Hong Kong, but I simply couldn't think of any other possibility. Never would I have imagined the other possibility could exist. They finally told me that I had been arrested for murder. That was beyond ridiculous. In the 10 Commandments of the Catholic Church, the 5th commandment, thou shalt not kill, How could I possibly have committed murder? And the person that they accused me of killing, I had never met him before. Ren used to tell me stories about how the gangs would sometimes send some of their own young boys to confess for crimes of the bosses. But usually they would at least get the stories straight first. Why hadn't I heard anything to get in touch with Mr. Curran or any of the other people in the group? But I hadn't heard anything back. Just when I started to lose hope, an unexpected visitor came to see me. It was so brave and nice for Yi to visit. She was wearing a light green jasmine? Even more beautiful than the one I remembered. Her hair hadn't grown back yet, but she still looked good. Yi told me that after I had saved her, she had even sent someone from the blood gang back to Pitt Street 99 to ask about me. They found out that I had never been back there ever since. Coincidentally, the man Yi had sent Ren into Ren had been worried about me too, and he also happened to know Yi's men, so Ren went with him to the blood gang and told Yi everything he knew. I was arrested by the police on the day that I helped Yi escape. Mr. Curran heard from the auction house about what I had done. He was outraged, but before he sent people to come after me, he got a phone call from the security of Mr. Lee. In the phone call, he was told that it had been arranged for me to stay in prison. From then on, whatever happened to me should not concern group loyalty anymore. Mr. Curran and the others didn't know for sure how I had offended the bosses so much. Based on the instructions they heard, they suspected I wouldn't have much longer to live. Ren gave Yi all of my personal belongings that I had left with the group, hoping that she could bring them to me when she visited. Yi's finger accidentally touched my phone when she was showing me my things. It lit up. A woman with curly red hair appeared on my screen. One of the blood gang members with us immediately recognized her. What, do you know my sister? I couldn't contain my excitement and jumped up from the chair. Stay quiet. The guard behind me stepped forward and pushed me back down. Yi unlocked her own phone and turned the screen towards me after a few clicks. I saw a list of people, some without a name, but only a photo followed by a string of digits. I read through the list one by one and stopped at the fifth person. She looked so much like my big sis, but her name was labeled Dragon. Huh, that's quite a coincidence. Your sister last contacted you from Hong Kong, right? Well, she has never left. She's now one of the top assassins in the field. There's an $8 million bounty on her head. Dragon is her code name. Jing and Quinn finally started fighting. Cheers erupted around them. All of the other inmates and guards were gathered around them. I snuck into the storage room at the corner of the yard while no one was watching. I had long noticed this one lock inside the storage room. It was full of random things that had not been claimed in a long time. I opened the locker with one hand and pulled my other hand out of my pocket. It had been holding some tools in my palm, which was completely wet as I had been sweating nervously the whole time. These tools had been brought in by Yi. She had hidden them inside the toiletry she had given me. She told me to use these tools to break out of prison. Yi also said to go arrange into going to prison probably had something to do with my sister. Someone might be using me as leverage to blackmail Alicia, or it could be revenge on her for by punishing me. Whatever the case was, I needed to get out of here as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the Black Dragon Gang was in control of this prison, so Yi and the Blood Gang couldn't just break me out of here. Therefore, I had to do that part by myself. Once I was out, the Blood Gang would assist me in any way they could. So, a prison break? Was I capable of something like that? Never mind whether or not the guards would probably ruin the whole thing if I ever got started. Nevertheless, I decided to hide the tools well in advance. Even if somebody discovered them, they wouldn't be able to track them back to me. As for my sister, I needed more time to think about this new information. Maybe I could find out more while I was still inside. I was about to close the locker when I heard slow footsteps and wheels rubbing against the ground outside. They were getting closer and closer to the storage room. Crap, please don't be the guards. I hastily hid inside the locker and closed it. I could still see a little of what was going on outside through the door crack. A blonde man in a prison uniform pushed the cart inside and closed the door. There were a few bags of concrete in the cart. I had heard that the new prison building was under construction. Lots of inmates were assigned to work on the site. He must be one of them. He started unloading the bags. 1, 2, 3. Another inmate was under the bags. His mouth was gagged and his limbs were tied up. I finally recognized both of them. The blonde one was said to be an infamous serial killer. Everyone called him Pi, and he had been sentenced to life in prison. The other one that Pi had just dragged out of the car and tossed on the ground was K. He was a serial rapist who had been sentenced to 20 years for over 14 assaults. He was lying there barely conscious. It wasn't unusual for inmates to have a go at each other. However, K seemed to have been completely knocked out. Our yard time would be over in half an hour. If they stayed in here too long, it might be hard to sneak out. If Pi found me hiding in the locker, that might be even worse. Pi put on his gloves. I swallowed nervously. He pinned K to the ground and choked his neck until K eventually stopped moving completely. Wow, that is bright. And opened the locker. He noticed me. Pi grabbed me by the collar and dragged me out of the locker, then chopped me on the neck with his bare hand. Unimaginable pain traveled from my neck to my head, and I could feel my brain being cut off from the rest of my body before I blacked out. When I woke up, I found myself stuffed inside a bulk bag. Everything below my chest had been submerged in concrete, which had not completely hardened, but the pressure in my chest was making it impossible to breathe. To stop me from making any noise, he had also sealed my lips with a piece of cloth soaked with concrete. I rocked my body as hard as I could and fell to the ground. I mean, it is kind of odd that Pi is killing Carlos. I mean, I guess if he wants to get rid of evidence, but for what we know with Pi, he hasn't done that at all. I rocked my body as hard as I could and fell to the ground. And then I saw another bag which had been filled with solid concrete right before my eyes. The weird shape of the bag convinced me that Kai must be inside. Okay. It was late at night. Pi would probably come back early in the morning and finish the job. Then he would throw these two bags with our bodies in them into the foundation of the new building and pour some more concrete over both our concrete coffins. No one would ever know. I had nothing to do with this. I was just here to hide something. How did I end up like this? Okay, it looks like there's two endings for this. If I go by this guide, I don't know why they probably just messed up. Oh well. Okay. I made up my mind and came out of the locker. I looked at the unconscious Kai, hoping he was still alive. Hey, don't you think that he had suffered enough? He will be 60 by the time he can get out, and he will die alone for sure. I'm certain he will regret what he did in his youth. He had 14 counts of rape, probably does not regret it at all. Killing him now is actually showing him mercy, right? You don't really have to do this. I inched closer to the door as I was speaking. I needed to stay as far away from this lunatic as I could. I didn't really have any sympathy for Kay. I heard that he had even raped some 50-year-old woman. By that count, he might still hurt people, even if he was released at 60. Pi seemed to be pondering my words. Who knew that lunatics could think too? When I was only 2 steps away from the door, he spoke. You make a good point, but I still think he should suffer a little more. What he did next paralyzed me. I stood there completely stunned, watching Pi take my brand new dagger out of the locker and used it to cut off Kai's private part. He then rubbed some concrete on his wound. Next, he covered Kay's severed private part with concrete and stuffed it into Kay's hands. Kay was still unconscious the whole time. This was something that a normal person would never witness their whole life. I was in such shock that I completely forgot about escaping. I mean, if you raped people 14 times, you kinda deserve it. After he was done, Pi asked me what I had been doing in the locker while cleaning up the blood on the floor. I still couldn't move. I dared not lie to the psycho in front of me. I told him everything. He finished his cleaning, walked up to me and put one arm around my shoulder, the cloth on his right hand soaked with Kay's blood kept brushing against my frozen face. A prison break. Sounds like fun, count me in. Okay. The nightly roll call had just ended. All of the gates were locked. It had finally quieted down, and the guards had left. I pulled a chair up to the bottom bunk and sat in front of Hotaru with a smile on my face. I need to ask you a favor. Hotaru and I had been in the same cell for over 2 months. We were still not friends who would chat with each other, so he had to be. Even if he didn't want to respond, he would be curious as what I wanted. What? I'd like to play a card game with you. The whole thing began about a month ago. Yi had come to visit me in prison and warned me to get out of. Sure sounded cool to me, but it would be an incredibly difficult task. When I was caught by Pi while trying to hide the tools. Then I was caught by Pi while trying to hide the tools. I had no choice but to tell him everything. To my surprise, he offered to join me. What kind of luck did I have? I used to watch a movie with Ren about a prison break. In the movie, the prisoners had been secretly digging a hole in his cell for years until he finally managed to escape on a stormy night. Would I have to do this for years too? Besides, this was not something that would get easier with more people involved. We even lived in different cells. Someone was bound to grow suspicious about him and I talking to each other during every yard time. Therefore, to succeed, the first thing I needed to do was to get Pi in the same cell as me. While Toru was a greedy, convincing, and disgusting weasel of a man, he had his own weaknesses. Rather, there was something about him that I could exploit. Toru loved card games, and he was a great player. He played with other inmates a lot, sometimes with wages of over 5 figures. He had won a lot of money in here with his special skills. Nevertheless, many people were still willing to play with him. For one single reason, he never bet any money himself. Instead, he only bet favors. If Toru lost, he would do one favor for the winner, as long as it was within his power. Toru got along really well with the guards. He had no trouble smuggling in some contrabands or getting some privileges for someone. Even the guards enjoyed playing a hand or two with him every once in a while. It was always a sweet deal for Toru. So it was time for me to ask him for a favor. If I could win, there was no doubt he would agree to switching cells. I didn't have to worry about him being suspicious of my intentions or reporting it to the guards. Toru's only good quality was that he would always hold up his end of the deal. The only problem was that it would not be easy to win. I had never played poker while I was in Mexico. After coming to Hong Kong, I had only played a couple of times when Ren would teach me. Besides, I didn't have any money to gamble with. This wasn't my idea, it was Pi's. Pi agreed to lend me a lot of cash. He even blackmailed some of the inmates that helped train me. Soon, everybody seemed to think of me as Pi's sidekick, and they began to show me more respect. A month had gone by, and I was finally feeling a little confident. Win or lose, it all depended on tonight. I took 10,000 Hong Kong dollar bills and counted them. I took out 1,000 Hong Kong dollar bills and counted them in front of Hatoru. He was ready to lie down. He was already lying down, but I saw his eyes glisten. He sat back up and crossed his legs. Fine, let's have a quick game then. Blackjack. The rules were simple. Both sides drew 4 cards from the pile after shuffling. The players would exchange 1 card with each other. Whoever had the hand that added up closest to 21 wins the hand. An ace valued could be either 1 or 11, while jacks, queens, and kings all counted as 10. If both players had the same sum, the hand was a tie, and they drew a new hand. The one whose hand was closest to 21 wins half of the opponent's bet, and the game continues. If the winner had a hand of exactly 21, he wins half of the opponent's stake, and the game ends. Both players should put down the same bet at the beginning, and whoever had more winnings wins the whole game. While the rules made the game sound like it would go on forever, it usually ended quickly, as there were numerous combinations that added up to 21. Still, I didn't expect him to play blackjack with me, since it relied a little more on pure luck than skill. Then again, I wasn't so sure if that was a good thing for me or not. Shuffling, drawing, I stared at my cards, thought long and hard with my heart pounding in my chest, and decided to keep these cards. 2, 3, 6, and I gave Hatoru this card. 8. I wish I had this card in my hand. A. I took the card from Hatoru. It was an ace. Why would he give away an ace? Hatoru slammed his cards on the bed. 8. Ace, ace, ace. Game over. Thanks. Hatoru grabbed the 5 bills, stuffed them into his other winnings, and went to sleep. Only 1 game. I was still sitting in my chair, stunned at my unbelievably bad luck. Would Pai's plan really work? Was there any other way? So it should be 3, 6. I took the card from Hatoru. It was an ace. Why would he give away an ace? I kind of guessed that was the movie they were talking about. I took the card from Hatoru. It was an ace. Why would he give away an ace? I double checked my hand. 3, 6, ace, ace, 21. I slayed my cards on the bed. Game over. Hatoru looked at the cards and yelled, "You cheated." He showed me his hand. 2, ace, ace, ace. How could there be 5 aces? No, I didn't. It must be you. Don't lie to me. If you're still a man, you'd own up to it. I honestly did not know where the fifth ace came from. Even though I didn't think Ettore would do something like this, I couldn't afford to be a pushover right now. Ettore looked a little tense. He was silent for a while, and then eventually squeezed out a sheesh. Fine, you won. But let me be clear, I'm not a miracle worker either. Of course. All I'm asking is for you to switch cells with Pi. Please say yes. Please say yes. I suddenly prayed to the Lord in my heart, and both of my hands were clenched into fists. Ettore looked troubled this time. That's a disappointed sigh. I didn't expect that the plan would fail at the step. I was so close. Well, listen, I'll tell you why, but you have to promise not to tell anyone. Ettore put away the cards and lowered his voice. Although, even if you do, I can guarantee you'll be the one to suffer. He got off the bed. Then he started pulling out the stuff that he had been piling underneath it. Then he told me to look under the bed. I lied down on my stomach and put my head to the ground. Wow, a huge hole. Ah, got an achievement. Okay. It looks like we're almost done with Carlos's story too. Friday night, 9:30 p.m., Ettore changed into his robe and went into the guard's monitor room. 9:45 p.m., I managed to incite Jin and Quinn into a fight and create a little chaos. 9:45 p.m. Pi finally made his cellmate fall asleep. 9:47 p.m. while everyone's attention was drawn to Jing and Quinn, Pi came into my cell. 9:53 p.m. Ettore came back. 9:55 p.m. all of the inmates had gone back to their own cells, and all of the gates were locked up. 10 p.m. no guards showed up for the roll call. At 10:07 p.m. Ettore, Pi, and I climbed into the underground tunnel through the hole in the floor of the cell. So far, everything was going smoothly according to plan. The tunnel was in the basement floor of the prison, and there was another monitor room at the end of it. It was a skylight window on the ceiling, which was right under the prison yard. It was also located on the edge of the yard near the prison wall. It was the only area that wasn't covered by searching lights. If we could get there without being discovered, freedom would be finally within our reach. But here comes the biggest obstacle in our whole plan. The guards in the monitor room. Every night there would be 2 people on duty in the room. Most of the time they stayed inside. They would leave and patrol the basement floor every once in a while. We did get into the room during their patrol without running into them. We had to get into the room. We must then get out through the window before they came back. Only then would the plan be a success. For an entire month, I had been observing the patrols while I hid in the underground tunnel. There were a lot of heavy machinery on the basement floor. They had divided the whole floor into many smaller lanes. Traversing all the lanes would take a long time, therefore most of the guards didn't really bother. Their patrol routes had no schedule or pattern whatsoever. However, there was a pair of particular twin brothers that would always follow the same route without exception. It was a huge break for us. Naturally, we decided to choose a night when the twins were on duty to carry out our plan. To be absolutely sure, I had drawn a map of their patrol route. The monitor room in the northeastern corner of the basement floor, and the monitor room was in the northeastern corner of the basement floor, and we set out from the southeastern corner. We could use the mechanicry as cover. However, there was nothing blocking the view in the lanes. The moment the guards appeared in the same lane as us, in either direction, they would see us immediately. In short, we had to get to the monitor room in a limited amount of time while avoiding the patrolling guards. I had planned our route in advance. It should be west, west, north, west, north, east, north, west. But I seemed to have made a mistake. After 2 intersections, we were caught by one of the twins. After the guards saw us, before we could climb out through the window, we heard the deafening alarms screaming outside. We were doomed. We were each put into solitary cells afterwards. The hole under the bunk bed in cell 28 was also filled. The next time I saw Pai and Hatoru was a week later in the yard. Pai was still his usual self. He seemed to be having lots of fun, even if he had failed to escape. Since our failed attempt at escaping, the guards started to distance themselves from Hatoru to save their own skins. Hatoru no longer played his card games with others, as he no longer had any income. It was all my fault. I even had a map of the patrols. How could I have miscalculated our route? I thought about the angry looks Satoru gave me. I thought about the fact that I might never be able to get out. I thought about the people that wanted to hurt Alicia. I felt so hopeless. Was there absolutely no way to get out? Lord, please guide me. So it's west, east, north, north, west, west. Oh, I need this north up here. There we go. At 10:30 p.m., we managed to sneak into the monitor room. Looking up through the window at the corner of the ceiling, we could see the sapphire color of the starry night. Yay, we made it. Yay, we got another achievement. Oh, wow. We unlocked a lot of letters. Oh, is this gonna be a Toru? I guess we can try to finish Carlos's story today. We have this letter and one more. I love the smiley faces in the background. My name is Pi. It's not my real name, but everyone keeps calling me that, so I decided to take it. Sometimes I wonder if God and fortune had abandoned me, but I knew there were many people in this world who might be as unfortunate as me, or even more so. I was determined to look at them, approach them, and seek out the culprit who had turned their lives into living nightmares. I would never be a god, but I was a deliverer of God's punishment. The unfortunate deserved to be salvaged. As for the sin of revenge, let me be the sole bearer of its wrath. However, I had begun to gradually realize that the evil in these humans were almost like a bacteria or a virus. They could be everywhere. They could dwell in the dark, human, disgusting back alley, or a loud and eccentric pub, or a joyful and innocent elementary school. I could still remember the lust in the PE teacher's eyes when he had mentioned his students. It was sickening. It was stomach-turning. Even though I kept eliminating them one after another, I always ended up running into the next foul beast hiding in another corner of the city. I finally came to one conclusion after my activities had been published in the papers. Instead of tracking them down, I went them with fear. The last target I had on the outside had been an unemployed young man who had been accidentally ran into on the street. I picked up the newspaper that he had dropped, and there was a story about someone molesting young children on it. That someone was him. It had grabbed my attention, so I followed him for a while. As it turned out, he was clearly not a pedophile. The article was just gossip that had to have been planted by someone who wanted to slander him. Still, I figured if I left my smiley face signature next to this pedophilic young man, as the press called him, it would be another visual story in the media for sure. And then the real perverts would certainly think twice before committing any more atrocities. Maybe they would even be scared and wouldn't even dare go outside. My logic was impeccable, but my luck wasn't, and things didn't turn out the way I had planned. Life in prison wasn't so bad. There were plenty of evil men who had received a much less serious sentence than what they deserved. Occasionally, I would send a couple of them to hell in the name of justice. However, for every day that I stayed in prison, more evil went unchecked in the world outside. The thought made me feel anxious every single day when I was in there. Therefore, the moment I had heard Carlos mention prison break, I immediately joined his plan without any hesitation. Today was the day of our escape. I was guessing that we might have run into some trouble. I said guessing because I couldn't see what was going on in the yard from where I was standing. Carlos was supposed to follow Hatoro through the window, and I would follow them. However, Carlos was still lying on the ledge beneath the window. Since there was only enough space for one person, I had to hide myself behind the door. So far, only Hatoro was up in the yard. I had never fully trusted that shorty. If he dared to betray us, I would not let him get away with this. Right at the instant I heard the footsteps of the prison guards on nightly duty, the twins had come back from their patrol. The door squeaked as it was pushed open. I held him tightly. There was a syringe in his hand. I choked the neck of the guard in front. But I didn't want to kill either of them. There was no reason to punish them. Besides, as long as I could get out of here, there would be nothing they could do about me. I was so careless. This man was much stronger than I thought. When my chokehold was barely loosened up, for instance, he reached his hand backwards and stabbed me into the neck with the syringe in his hand. It somehow felt familiar to me, only this time it wasn't poison in the syringe, but a strong hallucination bend and twist. All of the shapes were tangled together and then untangled and restructured again, and they morphed into emptiness. There was only my left standing in the center of a dark vacuum. A man emerged from the dark. He walked towards me and stopped in front of me, looking down at me coldly. He had oily black hair and a round belly. He was carrying an empty beer bottle, and he could barely stand. Where's your mother? Did she go to Alex again? I felt something familiar, yet strange, growing in my heart. But who was this person? My splitting headache started up again as if someone was squeezing my brain. I kept enduring the pain in my head and pulled out an imaginary gun. I pointed it at the oily-haired man and pulled the trigger. I heard a gunshot, but then I found myself holding a cooking knife instead. The bloody knife. The man standing opposite me split into two people, a man and a woman, both with blonde hair and blue eyes, were holding each other intimately. The man seemed a little nervous while the woman had a smirk on her face. They were looking directly at me. She was also holding a gun, and a gray smoke was rising from the tip of the barrel. Bastard. Bastard, bastard, bastard. No. I was not a bad child. My brain felt like it was being tumbled into 1,000 knives. Everything started morphing once again. The pain had spread across my entire body. I felt like I was drowning, and I couldn't distinguish the boundaries between reality and hallucinations at all anymore. Who on earth were they? Help me, help. That was a short letter. Okay. My name is Carlos. I planned a prison break not too long ago. Besides me, Pai and Hatoru had also involved in the plan. They were both inmates in Hong Kong's central prison just like me. On that night, we overcame lots of obstacles and found a dirt room on the basement floor. We were so close to freedom. The room had a skylight window with 2 layers. The inner layer was a sliding glass window to keep the dirt out, and on top of that was a window grate to protect the glass. Underneath the window there was a small ledge that was barely large enough for one person to lie upon. When the weather was nice, the guards would open the glass window for ventilation. That must be why the ledge was covered with dirt. The tourist slid the glass window open, pushed the grate, and climbed out. I was about to follow him, but he turned around, dropped the grate, and stepped on it. What was going on? I was suddenly reminded of what Pi told me in private. The little shorty is a sneaky bastard. I don't like him at all. When I first heard him say that, all I could think about was, yeah, you don't want to talk. I figured he only disliked Hitoru for the same reason that he disliked people like Kei. But now I realized he might have had a point. Hitoru, I'd be surprised if he betrayed us at this moment. I laid down on the edge. Through the glass I could see another dark figure join in Hitoru, but I couldn't tell who it was. It was probably a prison guard. No other people would be in the yard at this hour of the day. Hitoru was talking to the person. Even though there was only a grate between us, they were speaking so quietly that I still couldn't hear what they were saying. Shouldn't the guard be suspicious about Hitoru being there? Or maybe Hitoru was close enough to him that he would just let him go? Or maybe Hitoru had planned this all along. The dark figure moved a little. He unzipped his pants and let out a breath. Damn it. A stream of foul-smelling yellow water suddenly rained upon my head through the grate, and it kept going. What the hell was that? Why would anyone pee in public like this? I finally couldn't tolerate the smell anymore and let out a cough. The guard noticed me. 2 minutes later, surrounded by a dozen prison guards, I was pulled up to the ground through the window. I finally saw the face of the other man. It was Morgan. After our failed escape, we were all sent to solitary cells. I only learned later that Morgan was a drug addict. It was pure coincidence for us to run into him that fateful night. Morgan had been out walking that night high as a kite. He didn't even realize that Hitoru was trying to escape when he saw him. It was me who ruined the whole thing. If I could have kept quiet, we might still have been able to make it. Lord, would I have to spend the rest of my life in prison? How did he get out into the prison yard, though? My name is written as Tachibana Hitoru on my passport, but most people only knew me as Hitoru, as it was also my moniker. It had been written in Hanaga and hung over the door of my room in the Okiya? The geisha Okiya, located Rome in Tokyo, was where I grew up. On a moonless night, I saw a newborn baby had been left at the back door of the Okiya. I was wrapped in a piece of plain white cloth, and there was a glass jar with fireflies in it next to me. The faint blinking lights of the fireflies had grabbed the attention of a sister that was coming back late. That was also how I got my name. Since then, the sisters in the Kia had become my family, and that day, July 9th, became my birthday. I had shown a talent for dancing and performing since I was very young. The mama of the Okia wanted to send me away to a kabuki school, but I didn't want to leave the Okaya. After some arrangements and compromises, I became a male geisha. It was not something particularly uncommon in the past, but in contemporary Japan, it was almost unheard of. Still, rules were made by people. For a long time, a paper fan, a kimono, a sashimi, and my family were the entirety of my world until I met the savior of my life. It was a stormy evening. Kazumi was holding the banquet at our place, welcoming some guests who had come all the way from China. Menacing bodyguards in black suits were everywhere, from the gate to the backyard. A lot of them had suspicious bulges on their waists. I was told those were concealed guns. Kazumi was both a stakeholder in and the protector of our Okaya, and was almost the most powerful gang in the Shujuku area. The Okaya had prepared many performances for that night. No mistakes would be allowed. The opening act was Plum Blossom Creek, a dance that I had performed numerous times before. However, on that night, I had caught a little cold and wasn't feeling too well. With the atmosphere feeling so tense in the room, I was so nervous that I accidentally flung the fan out of my hand in the middle of the dance. The fan hit the head of a guest. It then fell into the boiling beef pot in front of him. The entire room became deathly silent as a young Chinese boy sitting in the corner of the table busted out laughing. Kazumi's men were outraged. I immediately dropped to my knees and begged for forgiveness. I was trembling from head to toe, too scared to even look up. One of them had already released the safety of his gun when the laughing young man said something. I couldn't understand what he said, but it must have been something nice. He became the savior of my life. Our story had a fairy tale beginning, but we didn't get to have the best ending. 2 years ago, he died. I only heard about it later by accident from some other customers. They had said that it had been a suicide. It couldn't be possible. I began to regret a lot of things. It was always him who would come to Japan to visit me, but I had never gone to Hong Kong to visit him. We could only meet 2 or 3 times a year, and only for a few days each time. He would never tell me in advance, or every time it was always a surprise. And sometimes I would fantasize about it when he was not with me. I would think to myself, maybe he was in Japan and maybe he would suddenly appear in front of me. The last time he came to see me, I was on a trip to Tori with the sisters, so we missed each other, but I never would have thought that it would be my last chance to see him. He killed himself while I was away. I couldn't let him die like this, against the objections from my sisters. I packed up all of my belongings and savings and came to Hong Kong. I finally managed to find his housekeeper, who had always looked after him. The housekeeper had accompanied him to Japan a couple of times. We had met a few times, and I knew I could trust him. He told me that he never believed that his young master would have committed suicide. He knew somebody who wanted the young masters dead, but he didn't have enough proof. The Lin family had a huge clan that had grown to have too many factions and infighting. You wanted someone gone, you either made sure you had sufficient evidence against him or you killed them. Was that somebody responsible? To find out the truth, I needed more information and more money. After spending some time on the streets looking for clues, I had an idea. I bribed a few cops to arrest me for something made up, just so I could be sent to Hong Kong Central Prison. In here, not only would they take care of my room and board, I could make some money and collect more information with my special gift. Everyone in prison had their own value to me. Some of them were worth a few $100 that I could win off them in a bet. Others might have power and connections that could help me get closer to the truth. The drunk and barely coherent prison guard who was standing in front of me right this moment fell into the latter group. His name was Morgan. Were we not just together? Did you already miss me, sweet baby? He was supposed to be doing the roll call tonight, so I had gotten him drunk earlier, hoping he would be sleeping it off. Who knew that he would be out wandering doing drugs again? His deeply sedated brain was probably making him unable to think anymore. Nevertheless, him being here was still a problem for us. I had to come clean. I pulled my cap lower. Care for a drink? Hold on 1 second. Morgan unzipped his pants and started doing his thing without even turning away. Oh no, oh God. I heard someone cough under the window. Carlos, you idiot. We were so screwed. I should not have agreed to help that idiot escape. I had been in cell 28 for a long time. At first, it was just me. Soon I found the hole under the bottom bunk bed, which was big enough for one person to escape. Perhaps someone else had tried to escape from here, but for some reason he had to abort. Therefore, leaving the hole behind like this, and without being discovered by the guards. I thought it was a blessing from the gods, gifted me with an exit strategy like this. Once I had enough money, I could just disappear without a trace. I had never revealed the secret to anyone. Never would I had imagined that my plan would be ruined by someone like Carlos. I didn't know that he would want to switch me out of the cell after winning the card game. I had no choice but to tell him the truth. One thing led to another, and it ended up being a prison break involving 3 people. Damn it, I should not have told him. I should have just made up some other excuse. Okay, this will give us the good ending for Carlos. And then we need syringe and drink for pie. And then there. That should give us the good ending for all 3. Damn it, thank God I had this hat on me, otherwise, the guard zipped his pants back up, and left with Hatoru. As soon as I couldn't hear them, I pushed open the gate and pulled myself up to the ground. We were almost there. Hold on 1 second. Morgan unzipped his pants and started doing his thing without even turning away. Oh no, oh god. My heart jumped up to my throat. I didn't know how Carlos did it, but fortunately everything stayed quiet below the window, thank God. Morgan zipped his pants back up. I pulled him closer to me and led him to a dark corner. This way, Morgan would not notice the other two people climbing out of the window. Besides, I had one last request before leaving. The photo that you showed me earlier, can I see it again? He stared blankly at me. It took him a while to understand what I was referring to. He then pulled his hand back inside his jacket, searched for a long time, and pulled out a photo. The woman in the photo was wearing a leather jacket and a pair of jeans. She was walking out of a pharmacy and about to put on her sunglasses. The brown face under her cap looked very cold. I was honestly very grateful to Morgan. He helped me a lot, including finding out the intricacies of my dear friend's last trip to Japan and who he had met and been with during the trip. That was how we found this woman. I figured she was just an assassin, and the person that the housekeeper had mentioned must have paid her. I swore I would not let either of them get away. You want more of me, don't you? If so, give me a kiss. I was good. Half a month ago, Carlos confessed to me that the reason he wanted to escape was to find his sister. He even showed me a picture of her. I just wanted to confirm that it was the same person in both photos, and now I was 100% certain. Morgan grabbed my shoulders. The smell of alcohol and other odors were getting stronger and stronger, enough that it was making me sick. His tall body was leaning. I saw a dagger in his back. The blade had sunk deep into his body where his heart was. Pi crouched down and wiped off the blood on his hands with Morgan's clothes, all while having a disgusted expression on his face. Well, we shouldn't stay here for too long. Follow me. Carlos ran towards the storage room in the corner of the yard. He had hidden other tools there to get over the walls. I looked at Morgan one last time before I followed. The photo was still stuck firmly in his hand. I didn't need it anymore. I would never forget that face. I held my breath, pushed my back against the wall, and grabbed the door lightly with my hands. As soon as he took one more step, I would, but the man stopped. I peeked through the crack in the door and saw the guard in front turn back to his brother and asked, "Which one?" "It's the new bar on Bay Road. You haven't been there, have you?" "No, have you?" "Of course not. I heard it from Morgan. He said the girls there were super hot and, oh, that sounds like fun." The subject seemed to have excited the twins a lot. Their footsteps continue again, just outside the door, only this time they were going further from me. After we got out of Hong Kong Central Prison, the three of us were all crammed into a car driven by a friend of Carlos. We were driven on roads that usually didn't have any cops and talking about our plans. Carlos intended to stay in Hong Kong. He had told me a long time ago that he was only escaping to go and look for his sister. Hatoru was still playing with his phone, and he said he was going to stay too. I thought about it for a while and finally decided to leave Hong Kong. If I had to guess, the news of me breaking out of prison would soon be broadcasted to the entire island. I could imagine the lovely expression on those evil people who thought they had escaped my judgment when they heard the news of me going to prison. I had planted the seed of fear in them, and they would no longer require an extra care from me. The darkness inside humans' hearts would make sure that it kept growing and blossoming. What I needed to do was plant more seeds all around this vast world. So I got out of the car somewhere near the port. My dear friends, farewell. With the sound of the ship's horn booming between the clouds and the ocean, I climbed up into the cargo ship that was about to set off on its voyage. She would be taking me to my next destination. I hoped that I would have more new and interesting encounters in a new and exciting world. And we got another achievement. Okay. Looks around. A letter. The letter is from a human named Juan. All I do every day is prepare tea and snacks for Master, so I didn't have anything else to do most of the time. Whenever I was free, I would read some of the letters I had stolen from Master's room. The first few times, I would sometimes imagine that I would do what I would do with these letters if I were Master. Lately, I stopped thinking about that too much. I had been too curious about what had happened to them. A young girl in school, a painter, a mental patient, a nerd, a couple of police officers, a pair of separated siblings, and a stray cat. Something bad must have happened to them when they wrote these letters. Even though I have read the choices Master made for them, I was still amazed by what happened afterwards in their lives. Although sometimes, as an observer, I felt like whatever choice they made wouldn't make any big differences. I suppose that's why they say time is hard. However, if I were one of them, I might think that this God is way too irresponsible. After all, if it were my own life, I don't think I would just simply accept a fate that was hard. It's so confusing. Oh, okay, the fire is off. Let me make the tea first. Master had a weird preference for his tea. He does not like the bitter taste of the tea leaves, so he likes to add sugar. I always think he should just choose another drink if he dislikes the bitter taste, like milk. There must be a lot of other choices. In the end, I opt to pour the sugar directly into the teapot. That is much easier. Wait, is this salt? Looks up with exasperation. I heard that besides sugar, it's also okay to add milk to tea, so maybe it's okay to add salt? Yeah. Sure. Master, the door was closed. Push the door open lightly. I guess he's sleeping again. I didn't see Master anywhere, but there is a boy standing in front of the window. Am I still sleeping? What are you sneaking around for? Wait, how is he suddenly behind me? He, who are you talking about? I followed Master into the room, but there was no boy in front of the window. That's weird. I clearly saw someone standing in a ghost. There's no such thing. You must be daydreaming again after reading some strange books. Daydreaming. Speaking of which, I think I have seen that boy before in one of my dreams, but I couldn't remember what the dream was about. Just leave the food and go back to your room. I'm a little tired. I might take a quick nap. Oh, okay. That was too careless of me just now. I have been too distracted lately. I can't seem to concentrate. It looks like there's fewer letters on the shelf. Oh well, let me drink my tea and warm myself up a little. She's been mischievous again. Oh well, she's been like this ever since she was little. Ah, how I miss those days. I guess I should still drink this horrible tea anyway. After all, I might never get a chance to drink the tea she makes anymore. It doesn't look like there's much time left. I have devoted so much time, yet I still don't have a concrete answer. If there's still no breakthrough before the time comes, we're both dead. We'll be just like Spotty, dying on a long, lonely journey. And yet, perhaps it is our inevitable destiny as well as that of this world. If I could leave this world, in a beautiful dream. That wouldn't be so bad either. Oi, it's raining so hard that it's almost impossible to get a cab. I'm sorry. It's all your fault, brother, you big liar. Green polar bears? Why would there be polar bears in Brazil? You big fat liar. And now we have to wait in the rain? So what? It's still better than just sitting around at home. Your room is beginning to smell like mold. It's not mold, it's just the smell of Fluffy. He must still be with me somehow. Hey, stop saying creepy stuff like that. Remember to open the window when we get home. By the way, do you know what French people say about those who never go outside and never open the window? What? They will suspect that you are a member of some secret organization cooking up some evil plans. That actually sounds pretty cool, don't you think? What secret organization? You're making stuff up again. You just touched your head, didn't you? I will never believe you again. Besides, you know that I never been to Europe before. Why did Mom and Dad always take you to their meetings, but not me? That was because you were too small. I wasn't. I was only a few 100 days younger than you. Why can't you just say you're a few years younger? Who says a few 100 days? Alright, don't be mad. There will be lots of chances in the future. Well, I wouldn't be mad if you sing me a song. What song? Well, I want you to sing Teresa Tang's I Only Care About You for me. That's too embarrassing. I'll be okay with one of her other songs too. All of your songs are too embarrassing to sing out loud. How about this? You give me a kiss on the cheek and Big Brother will sing for you right here, right now, deal? Not on my hand, on my face. Here. Why? No, there can't be a time limit. Oh no. Save. Well, we're gonna call it here. I don't want to deal with a time limit right now. Hopefully the time limit starts back up again from where we saved. I will see you all next week, I guess. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.